If you are transgender, how do you decide what sports teams to play on? In a growing number of states, that decision is made for you, if you get to play at all. Yesterday, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem signed a ban on transgender athletes. The law bars trans girls and women from women's high school and college sports. Here's how Governor Noem explained the ban.
It's about fairness. We fought years ago for Title IX,
Sure.
so that women had an opportunity to compete. Now, there's many different competitions where biological sex isn't that big of a deal, and we don't make accommodations for it in debate competitions or academic speech competitions, but in athletics it does matter.
South Dakota's bill is set to take effect on July 1st. It is the first state to pass such a law this year and the 10th state overall. Also this week, the group that picks the U.S. Olympic swim team changed its policy toward trans athletes. USA Swimming set new rules that focus on testosterone levels. They require trans women to stay below a certain test level for at least 3 years in order to compete. The NCAA also has new rules like this. Trans women must document their testosterone levels at least 3 times, including 4 weeks before championship selection. Now, these policies overlap 2 different but related things: your sex, which is what others can see, and your gender identity, which is how you see yourself. What will this mean for trans athletes? And how much does biology really factor into fair play? Let's discuss it with Cathryn Oakley, State Legislative Director and Senior Counsel at the Human Rights Campaign. Ms. Oakley, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Has HRC already made plans to fight back against this latest measure in South Dakota? What's your group's response to this?
This is a terrible bill, and we're really discouraged that this is something that the governor has decided to pursue yet again. Last year, she issued 2 executive orders, and this year she followed it up with a law. And while we have not announced plans for litigation at this time, it's a law that we absolutely oppose and have been involved in trying to oppose in the South Dakota legislature.
I should note, by the way, we did reach out to the sponsor of the bill, Fred Deutsch. We have yet to hear back, but that invitation stands because I would like to hear, and I'm not asking you to answer this, Ms. Oakley, but I would like to hear from the supporters of this why they feel that such a measure is necessary or prudent or warranted. I think what I took from Governor Noem was that it seems to be about fairness, that there are certain kinds of competitions like debate, for example, where gender is not as important. I think some of us who actually did speech and debate would argue that, depending on your gender and the way you view people's intuition and sense of reading a room, that it might make a difference. So it depends on how deep down this rabbit hole you want to go. But how would you respond to that argument about fairness?
Yeah, the first thing I would point out is that Representative Deutsch also sponsored the bathroom ban and has been involved as an innovator in anti-transgender legislation for several years. Folks may not remember, but South Dakota actually passed a bathroom ban before North Carolina did. The reason that they were not the ones who went down in infamy is because the governor vetoed that bill, a different governor at that time. And I think it's really important to say that trans athletes have been participating in sports in states across the country for decades. There is no crisis around trans athletes playing sports. What there is a lot of attention to this issue over the last few years. And that's because folks like Representative Deutsch and others have chosen to make this the new bathroom bill. The folks who couldn't peel back marriage equality, they couldn't make people afraid of trans bathroom use. This is where they've landed, is going after transgender youth, playing sports, being able to access gender-affirming health care. And they're doing that because they think they can make people afraid, but it's not because there are actually any fairness concerns. Trans athletes have been playing sports in states around the country for decades. They've been playing at every level of competition, and there's just not been a problem. This is fabricated and political.
Forgive me for interrupting you, but I wonder if you can empathize at all with parents who, just to cut to the chase, are nervous. They are encountering issues related to gender that they've never had to discuss before. They may not even fully understand the difference between sex, gender identity, and sexual orientation, for example, which, for those of you playing the home game, they are not the same thing. Gender identity is who you see yourself as. Sexual orientation is who you see yourself with. Not the same thing. But for parents who are learning about this for the first time, who are like, I don't want to deal with any of this, just keep it normal and keep them away from my kids, who are just freaked out, what would you say to them about these issues?
Look, I do have sympathy. And I'm a huge fan of women's sports. I have season tickets to my WNBA home team. I'm a former high school athlete myself. So this is a really important issue. A lot of people are very connected to Title IX. A lot of people are very connected to the idea of being able to play sports. So this is something that matters to people. And I do understand that. I also understand that not everyone has a trans person in their life. One of the things that we know that really impacts people's support of the LGBTQ community is knowing someone who's LGBTQ. We know that was a huge change in support for marriage equality was when an increased number of people knew people who were interested in getting married or just identified as being LGB. The number of people who know a trans person is much less. And I think that's part of the problem is that there's just a lack of awareness. This seems like a complicated issue to grown-ups. But let me tell you, kids don't think it's complicated. Kids understand that there's some stuff that just is. And if you ask, hey, how do you know that you're a girl or boy? A kid is going to be able to tell you, I'm a girl, I'm a boy. It's going to be clear for them if that's their reality. And it's complicated for grown-ups, but it's not complicated for kids.
Well, I know that parents take athletics very seriously. The only sport I played in high school was speech and debate, so that's why I have that perspective on it. But if that's not a contact sport, I don't know what is. It worked out great for me. I built a career out of it. Cathryn Oakley with the Human Rights Campaign. I appreciate you making time for us tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.